The hall was silent. Only the loud footsteps of the alien king echoed as he walked toward the center. His tall, golden armor shimmered under the lights. Behind him, alien guards stood still, faces hard like stone. Across the room stood a group of humans, tired, dirty, but proud. They had survived a long war. Peace had finally come after years of bloodshed between humans and the Varnak Empire. Now, it was time to seal that peace with a gesture. King Verloc raised his hand. His voice boomed. As a symbol of peace, I offer a gift to the humans. Treasure from my own bloodline. The humans waited. Was it a weapon, land, resources? The king smirked. From behind a curtain, 2 guards brought someone forward, a woman. She walked slowly, chin up, eyes sharp. Her silver skin shone like metal. Under the lights, her long dark hair was braided with jewels. Even in chains, she looked regal. She is Princess Ilari, my daughter, the king announced. The room stirred. But let me be honest, he said coldly. She is infertile, useless to my bloodline. A queen who cannot give birth is not a queen at all. A few aliens chuckled cruelly. The humans looked confused. One soldier whispered, "Is this a joke?" The king pointed to one of the humans, a tall, battle-hardened man with a scar across his cheek. "You," the king said, "Captain Jareth of Earth's 9th Division. You led the assault on our capital. You have my respect." Captain Jareth stepped forward, eyes wary. "She is yours now," the king said with a wicked grin. "Do what you want. She can't carry a child, so she's no threat." Princess Ilari's eyes burned with anger, but she said nothing. Captain Jareth looked around. Everyone expected him to laugh, reject her, or walk away, but instead, he stepped closer. He looked into her eyes, then he said quietly, "I'll treat her with honor." Gasps filled the hall. The king raised an eyebrow. "You accept her?" "I don't need her to give me children," Jareth replied. "I just need her to be treated with respect." The alien king laughed hard, clapping his hands. "Humans are more foolish than I thought." But Princess Ilari looked stunned. No one had spoken to her like that in years. Not her father, not the royal court, not anyone. Later, they traveled together on the ship back to the human colony. Ilari sat quietly, hands still bound in front of her. Jareth ordered the chains removed. She didn't say a word, just stared out the window at the stars. He brought her food. She didn't eat. He offered her clean clothes. She refused. At night, he gave her a private room. She didn't sleep. Instead, she stood near his door for hours watching. Jareth finally asked, "Why don't you rest?" She answered softly for the first time, "Do you think this is freedom?" He looked confused. "I was a prisoner in the palace," she continued. "Now I'm a prisoner here. The cage just changed shape." "I'm not your jailer," he said. "You didn't ask for me," she replied. "But you accepted me." "That's because no one deserves to be thrown away like trash," he said. Ilari turned her head. For a moment, her hard face softened. The next day, she finally sat at the table. She tasted the human food and nodded slightly. It wasn't royal cuisine, but it was real. She watched Jareth as he cleaned his armor, fixed the lights, and helped wounded refugees. He wasn't like the alien nobles she knew. He didn't give orders. He worked beside his people. At night, she sat outside, watching the stars. Jareth joined her. "You're quiet," he said. "I'm watching the sky," she replied. "Thinking about home?" "No," she said, then looked at him, thinking about what comes next. "What do you want next?" he asked. She paused, then whispered, "I want to live. Not just survive." But deep inside her, a storm was rising. The shame of being given away like a broken object. The memory of her father's cruel words. The truth of her infertility, which wasn't the full truth at all. That night, she stood in front of Jareth's room again. He opened the door and asked gently, "Do you need something?" She stared into his eyes. Her voice was low and steady. "You don't know what you've just done, human." He raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" She stepped closer. "You accepted a gift that could destroy your world. And mine." And then she turned, leaving him with 1,000 questions and a deep, growing suspicion in his heart. She hadn't said a single word in 3 days. But every time Jareth turned his back, she was staring at him like he was a puzzle she couldn't solve or a weapon she might have to use. The human colony on Outpost 17 was no palace. It was made of steel, sand, and silence. Dust storms screamed across the horizon every night. And inside the small bunker, a strange cold war had begun between a human soldier and an alien princess. Captain Jareth kept his routine simple. He woke early, trained, fixed broken machines, helped survivors, and checked in with command. But since the princess arrived, everything felt different. She didn't speak. She didn't ask for anything. She didn't even blink when the alarm sirens screamed in the middle of the night. Her name was Princess Ilari, once heir to the Varnak throne. Now she sat by the window all day, watching the red skies and the broken satellites drifting above. Jareth left a plate of food near her every morning. She never touched it while he was in the room, but when he returned hours later, the plate would be empty. Strange. One evening, he placed a soft blanket on the couch where she sat. She didn't look at him. She only said, "You should not be kind to me." That was the first time she spoke since leaving the palace. Jareth paused. "Why not?" She finally turned her eyes to him, cold, bright, intelligent. "Kindness creates hope. Hope is dangerous." That night, Jareth couldn't sleep. He heard footsteps. Soft, barefoot. He opened one eye and saw her standing in the hallway, just outside his room. Not moving, just watching him. He sat up slowly. "Is something wrong?" No answer, only a stare. And then she walked away, silent as a shadow. The next morning, Jareth found something strange. His medical files had been moved. Someone had looked through his biology database. He looked at her. "Were you in my files?" Still no answer, but a flicker of surprise danced across her face, just for a moment. That afternoon, she walked into the kitchen. She picked up a small human medical scanner and turned it in her hand. "This device," she said, her voice calm. "It scans reproductive systems, yes?" Jareth nodded slowly. "Yes, it's used for fertility checks." She pressed the scanner to her wrist and looked at the screen. It beeped once. Then again. She stared at the result, expression unreadable, then handed it back to Jareth without a word and walked away. Later, he found her on the roof of the outpost, staring at the stars again. "You used that scanner," he said carefully. "Why?" She didn't answer right away. But when she did, her voice cracked a little. "They said I was broken. But no one ever let me test myself." Jareth stepped closer. "And now?" "I don't know," she whispered. "It said something strange, something not normal." He waited. She turned to him. "Human machines are different. They do not lie like ours." That night, she knocked on his door. Not stood outside. Knocked. He opened it. Surprised. "I need to ask you something." She said, her tone different. Less cold, more curious. "Okay, why did you accept me?" Jareth took a moment before answering. "Because I saw a woman being treated like trash. And I don't believe anyone should be treated that way." She looked down. Her voice dropped low. "You are not like our males." "That's probably a good thing." For the first time she smiled. Just a little. Ilari began to change. She spoke more. Not much, but enough. She asked about Earth, about human medicine, about children. She watched Jareth train every morning. Quietly, she copied his movements at night when no one watched. She read his books, especially those about genetics and biology. Jareth noticed the hunger in her eyes, not for food, but for truth. One evening she came to him holding an old Earth Book titled Cell Repair and Fertility Restoration. This is not alien medicine, she said. It's human tech, he replied. Old, but advanced. Why? She looked straight at him. Her voice shook for the first time. I was not born infertile, Jareth. Someone did this to me. He froze. She continued, my stepmother. She gave me something when I was young. A treatment. She said, but after that, I could no longer feel certain things. My body changed. Jareth clenched his fists. They stole your future. They feared my claim to the throne, she whispered. If I had no heir, I had no power. Jareth stood up. Then we fix it. She looked shocked. You'd help me? I don't care what galaxy you're from. No one deserves that. As she turned to leave, she whispered one more thing under her breath. If I become fertile again, the king will send death. And then she was gone, leaving behind a scared human, a ticking secret, and a future that could shake 2 empires. Princess Ilari sat on the edge of the metal bed, legs folded under her, holding a human medical tablet. The screen glowed softly as her fingers traced data she never expected to see. Behind her, Captain Jareth stood silent. He could hear her breathing shallow, fast, nervous. This was not the proud, cold alien woman who once refused food, sleep, or speech. This was someone wounded, afraid, and beginning to open up. I wasn't born broken, she said without turning. Jareth stepped closer. What do you mean? Her voice was dry, cracked like old glass. My body. It was changed. The scanner you gave me, it showed artificial blocks in my system, chemical scars. She turned now, eyes sharp but shimmering. Someone used drugs on me, long ago. They shut down parts of my body, parts made for life. Jareth sat across from her, stunned. But why? Ilari laughed softly, but it was not happy. It was bitter, filled with old pain. I was the king's firstborn. He loved me once. Said I'd rule one day. She clenched her hands. But after he married his new queen, everything changed. She looked down. The queen had a son, a weak, sick boy, but he was male. That was enough. Jareth listened, heart heavy. One night I was taken to the healers. They told me I needed protection, something to prepare me for royal duty. I was just a child. I believed them. She paused. Her hands were shaking now. But after that, I never bled again. My body grew cold, empty. I felt wrong inside. Jareth swallowed hard. They sterilized you. Ilari nodded slowly, silently, secretly. Even my father never spoke of it again. She stood and walked to the small window, looking at the stars like they might carry answers. I tried to ask questions as I grew older, she said. The healers vanished, records were erased. I became a symbol of shame and heir with no womb. Jareth stood beside her. You were made infertile. To protect someone else's place on the throne, she nodded again. They turned me into a gift, a tool, a joke. That's what I am to them now. No, Jareth said firmly. You're not a joke. You're a survivor. There was silence for a long time. Finally, she turned to him, voice low and trembling. Do you think this human treatment could undo it? Jareth looked at the scan again. Maybe. The human drugs we used during old wars, some of them helped repair damage like this. But it's dangerous. I don't care, she said. If there's even a chance. I want to try. The next day, they began. Jareth gave her small doses of a regenerative serum, something once used to help injured Earth colonists heal after deep nerve damage. She accepted each injection, without fear, eyes full of quiet fire. But with each passing day, she grew weaker, sweating, dizzy, silent again. One night, Jareth found her collapsed in the hallway, breathing hard. He rushed to her side. Ilari, can you hear me? She nodded faintly. It burns, but I can feel. Something. Coming back. Jareth picked her up gently, carried her to the bed, and stayed by her side the entire night. She didn't let go of his hand once in the morning. Her fever broke. She looked up at him and whispered, "It hurts, but this pain feels real. Like something inside me is waking up after a long sleep." Jareth gave her water. "Rest, we'll go slow." "No," she said. "We don't have time." A beeping sound interrupted them. Jareth turned to the monitor. There was an encrypted message. It was from the outer colony sensors. A Varnak royal ship had entered nearby space. Alari's eyes widened. "They found me." "Maybe they're here to bring you back," Jareth sighed. "No," she whispered, her voice shaking. "They're not here to talk. They're here to finish what they started." She stood, wobbling, but strong in her voice. "If they find out I'm healing, if they learn I might bear a child, they'll kill both of us." Jareth tightened his jaw. "Then we won't let them." Alari looked at him, something unspoken in her gaze, and for the first time, she reached out, not as a princess, not as a gift, but as a woman holding on to hope. "Help me finish the treatment," she said. "Help me become whole again, before it's too late." She came to him that night, not as a princess, not as a warrior, but as a woman with fire in her eyes. "For one night only," she said, "before the world tries to take it away." The outpost felt colder that night. Captain Jareth stood outside, staring at the sky. The stars looked like tiny fireflies frozen in the dark. His mind was heavy, full of worry, full of her. Inside, Princess Alari sat alone, her fingers pressed against her lower stomach. For days now, her body had felt different, warmer, sharper, alive. The treatment was working, but each heartbeat brought more danger. If the Varnak royals learned she could bear a child again, they would not let her live. And they would never allow the child to exist. Jareth entered. Quietly, she looked at him, eyes full of something new. Not fear, not anger, longing. "I need to tell you something," she said. He nodded. "Go on." She walked toward him slowly, each step full of quiet strength. "I feel changes," she said softly. "Inside, I cannot explain them. But it's like something that was once dead is awake again." Jareth said nothing. He just listened. "I've lived my life in silence, behind walls, behind lies," she continued. "But tonight, I don't want to feel like a tool, or a prisoner, or a broken thing." She stepped inches from him. "Tonight, I want to feel real, alive, wanted." He looked into her eyes. "This isn't what you owe me," he said. "You don't have to prove anything." "I know," she whispered. "That's why I chose this." She reached for his hand, and he didn't pull away. That night, the steel walls of the cold outpost became warm with breath and closeness. She let down her guard. He laid aside his fear. Two people, different species, different worlds, found something human between them. Not lust, not duty, but something gentle, raw, healing. Hours passed. She lay beside him, her silver skin glowing in the moonlight shining through the window. Jareth whispered, "Do you regret it?" She shook her head. "I regret waiting so long to feel this way." They smiled, but the peace didn't last out. The next morning, Alari awoke before the sun. Something felt strange. Her stomach churned, but not in pain. Her pulse raced. She grabbed the scanner. Her hands trembled. She scanned herself again and again, and then she dropped the device. She stared at the screen. Life detected. Her breath caught. "No," she whispered. "It can't be." She rushed to Jareth, shaking him awake. He blinked. "What is it?" "I need you to see something," she said, voice trembling. He looked at the scanner, then at her. "It's real?" he asked. A tear slipped from her eye. She nodded. "It's real." "You're pregnant," he said in disbelief. "Alari, this changes everything." She sat down, shaking. "They said I couldn't. They made sure I couldn't. But now, Jareth leaned forward. We need to hide this. If the king finds out, he won't just come for me, she said. He'll come for the child. Suddenly, a loud beep echoed through the base, a warning signal. Jareth rushed to the console. A ship had landed, but not just any ship. Royal seal detected. Varnak High Command. They're here, Jareth said. How? She whispered. Maybe. They tracked your vitals remotely. Maybe someone reported us. Alari's eyes filled with fear. Then we have no time, she said. We run. Jareth grabbed emergency supplies. We leave through the old tunnels, he said. They won't. Expect that. As they prepared to escape, Alari paused and placed a hand over her belly. For the first time in her life, something was growing inside her, something that had never been allowed to exist. Hope. A child, a future. But in the distance, the enemy was already knocking on the door. And this time, they wouldn't just be after her blood. They would be after her unborn heir. When the alien king heard his infertile daughter was carrying a child, he didn't ask how. He asked who to kill first. Far across the stars, inside the crystal throne room of Varnak Prime, King Verloc crushed a wineglass in his hand. Red liquid spilled across his fingers. Repeat it, he growled. The messenger trembled. Your daughter, Princess Alari, has been found. She is alive. She's with the human. And she's pregnant. The court fell silent. No one dared breathe. The queen's face turned pale. The king stood slowly. She was supposed to be infertile. That's why I gave her away. She is not anymore, your majesty, the messenger said, voice shaking. King's voice dropped to a whisper. Then I gave away my true heir. He turned to the queen, his second wife. Her lips tightened. If the people find out, she said, they will rise against us. A child from her bloodline is stronger than ours. The king's jaw clenched. Then the child must die before it is born. Back on the human outpost, Jareth and Alari ran through the tunnels under the base. Alarms blared above. Enemy boots echoed on the surface. The scanner Alari held showed 2 heartbeats, hers, and something small and growing inside her. They reached a cargo tunnel leading into the desert. Jareth checked the map. There's an abandoned mining ship 2 kilometers west. We can hide there, Alari nodded. She didn't speak much. Her hand stayed over her belly, as if protecting it from the world. As they moved, Alari finally whispered, he knows. Jareth glanced back. The king, she nodded. He always said the throne belongs to power. Bloodline is everything. If he finds out this child carries both human and royal Varnak blood, he'll do anything to stop it, Jareth finished. She stopped walking. No, she said. He won't stop at me. He'll wipe out every human who helped you. He'll destroy colonies, cities, just to erase this mistake. Suddenly, they heard a sound behind them. Metal boots, moving fast. Jareth pulled Alari into a rocky crevice. They held their breath as 3 royal guards passed by. The soldiers were scanning the desert. Orders are to retrieve the princess. Dead or alive, one of them said. But the human? Kill on sight. Alari squeezed her eyes shut. Jareth looked at her, then back at the guards. Once they passed, he whispered, we can't run forever. Then we don't run, Alari said. We fight. Hours later, in a small cave lit by a cracked lantern, Jareth sent a hidden message to Earth Command. Urgent. Royal forces in system. Princess pregnant. Targeted for termination. Request immediate extraction. He turned to Alari, who was resting on a blanket. She looked pale. Still feeling okay? He asked. She smiled softly. I'm scared. Me too, he admitted. She looked into his eyes. I never wanted to be a mother. I was told I could never be one. But now I would burn kingdoms for this child. Back in the Varnak capital, things were not quiet. Nobles whispered in the dark halls. If the princess is fertile, the queen's son has no right to the throne. A human father, but still royal blood. This could change everything. Maybe. It's time the crown returned to the first line. The queen heard the whispers. Her hands trembled with rage. She met with the king in secret. We must erase her. No trial, no public notice, quietly, permanently. The king summoned his most feared assassin, a shadow creature known only as the Void Blade. Find her, the king ordered, before the truth spreads. The assassin bowed without a word, then vanished into smoke. Back in the cave, Jareth and Alari sat quietly, watching the stars rise. He took her hand gently. I'll protect you both, he said. Already are, she whispered, even when I didn't know I needed it. Suddenly, the scanner beeped again. New signal detected. Incoming vessel. Unknown ID. Jareth stood. Alari looked up, heart pounding. Friend or enemy? She asked. Jareth narrowed his eyes. We'll find out soon. But far above them, drifting quietly in orbit, a dark ship hovered. Invisible. Watching. Waiting. Inside stood the Void Blade, preparing to strike. Because this was no longer about one princess. It was about the future of two empires and a child who was never meant to exist. Before, they called her useless. Now they call her mother of the true heir. And the king? He's about to lose his crown. The message spread like fire through the Varnak Empire. The first princess lives. She carries a child. The child is the true heir. It started as a whisper in the servant halls. Then it reached the noble houses. Then the generals. Within days, half the empire was in secret meetings, asking one question: what happens when the throne belongs to someone stronger, braver, and part human? In a tall tower in the capital, Lord Kareth, a high noble, slammed his fist on the table. I fought for this kingdom. He shouted. I followed the king's every order. But now I learn he erased his own daughter's future just to give the throne to a weakling. A lady beside him nodded. The queen's son is ill. He's never even trained for battle. The people want strength, and she has it, Lord Kareth said. Ilari fought to stay alive when everyone gave up on her. She carries life when they called her barren. They all turned to each other. A quiet decision was made. The rebellion had begun. Far from the capital, in a ruined mining station, Jareth and Alari sat in silence. They had escaped death again, but barely. The assassin's first strike had come. Fast dark energy through the air, blades that hummed like wind. Jareth had managed to wound it. Not kill, just delay. Now they were hiding again, deeper underground. Ilari touched her belly. It moved, she whispered. Jareth looked at her in awe. You felt it? He asked. She nodded, eyes wide. Just once, like a tiny push from inside. He smiled for the first time in days. Then it's strong just like you. Alari stood and placed her palm against the wall. This child, it's not just mine, she said. It belongs to both our worlds. She turned to Jareth. If we run forever, it will be born in hiding, afraid, hunted. Jareth looked down. You want to fight back? I want to make them afraid of us, she said coldly. Like they made me afraid all my life. Suddenly, a voice came from the communicator. It was coded, but familiar. To the first princess, this is Lord Kareth of House Vorn. You are not alone. Many of us support you. We await your signal. Jareth stared. Alari stepped forward. This is Princess Alari, she said into the mic. I am alive. My child lives. If you truly stand with me, then prove it. 2 days later, a rebel ship arrived. Inside were 10 elite soldiers, Varnak warriors dressed not in royal colors, but silver gray, the color of exiles. They knelt before her. My princess, the leader said. We will protect the heir with our lives. News reached the king quickly. He smashed his throne into pieces. They kneel to a half-human child, He roared. They dare betray the bloodline? The queen tried to calm him. We still control the capital. The army is large. No, he said darkly. The army is divided. That's worse than small. He turned to his last loyal general. Send the fleet. Crush the rebellion. Kill my daughter. Kill the child. Burn it all if you must. But back in the desert, the rebellion had already begun to grow. Human and alien scientists worked together to build better defenses. Alien warriors trained beside human marines. For the first time in history, two species fought together, not as conquerors, but as parents, protectors of something new. Ilari stood before them all. She wore armor now not royal, not military, but something new. Made of old Varnak plating and human tech. She placed her hand over her belly and sighed. I was thrown away, forgotten, broken. But I rose, I healed, and now I carry the future. You don't fight for me, she said. You fight for the child who was never supposed to exist. Cheers rang out across the base. Even Jareth, standing in the shadows, felt something he never expected. Hope in the sky, enemy ships gathered. The war was coming, and this time, it wasn't about land or power or bloodlines. It was about a child. A symbol, a spark. And both sides were ready to burn everything to control it. When the child was born, silence fell across the base. The alien princess stared in shock, and the human whispered, "He has my eyes." The underground base shook with explosions. The Varnak King's fleet had arrived, heavy warships, raining fire on rebel defenses, inside a medical room deep below. Princess Ilari screamed in pain. She gripped the metal table, sweat running down her silver skin. Jareth was beside her, holding her hand, his jaw clenched. "She's going into labor." The medic shouted, "I thought we had more time." Jareth yelled, "There is no more time," Ilari hissed. "He's coming now." Outside, rebels and loyalists clashed out. Alien warriors shouted in their native tongue. Human soldiers fired back-to-back with Varnak defectors. And in the sky, the royal flagship waited. Inside it, King Verloc stood still, staring at the planet. He whispered, "The child is being born." He closed his eyes, and his voice became sharp. "Send in the assassin. Now end it before it begins." Below, Ilari screamed again, and then, suddenly, silence. The cries of a newborn echoed in the room. Small, soft, alive. The nurse wrapped the baby in a warm cloth and placed him in Ilari's arms. Jareth leaned over, heart pounding. The baby opened his eyes. They were not alien. They were his. Human. Round pupils, deep green, bright with life. He looks human," Ilari whispered. Jareth smiled, shocked. "But he's not just human." The baby's tiny hand reached out, and a small spark of energy crackled from his fingertip. Alien energy. A hybrid. In that moment, something shifted in Ilari's eyes. "I thought I would give birth to hope," she whispered. "But I've given birth to power." Suddenly, the lights flickered. A sharp hiss filled the air. Jareth pulled his weapon. Too late. A black figure dropped from the ceiling. The assassin. The void blade had found them. It moved like wind, dark and silent. Jareth fired. Figure dodged and struck back. Slicing across his chest, he fell. Ilari screamed. The assassin reached for the baby, but before he could touch him, the child screamed. A shockwave burst out from his tiny body, energy pure and wild. The assassin was thrown across the room, crashing into the wall. Smoke rose from his body. He didn't get up again. Ilari held the child tighter, eyes wide. "He protected us," she whispered. The nurse cried, "What is he?" Jareth sat up slowly, blood on his chest, staring at his son. "He's the future," he said. Back in space, the royal soldiers received the final transmission. Assassin dead. Princess and child survived. The king's face turned pale, and, for the first time in his life, He knew he had lost. Later that day, the rebel army marched toward the capital. They didn't need weapons anymore. They had something stronger, a living heir. And when the people saw the child with human eyes and alien light in his skin, something inside them broke free. Old lies, old fears, old loyalty. The queen vanished. The king was taken, and Princess Alari, once unwanted, once infertile, stood on the throne with her child in her arms. Jareth stood beside her, armor cracked, eyes steady. In her first royal speech, she said only this: "I was thrown away by a king, but a human picked me up. Together we made something new, not a prince, not a weapon, but a bridge between worlds." The crowd roared, and high above, the child looked down at the people, eyes glowing. As if he already knew he was born to change everything.